Lena had always prided herself on keeping her focus sharp. As a scientist, she was used to solving problems in the most systematic way possible. But that day, the chaos around her was unlike anything she had experienced before. The streets of the city were crowded with people shouting, running, and trying to make sense of the chaos. Something was wrong, something big. She could feel it in the air, thick with tension. She was walking briskly, trying to get back to her lab. The sounds of sirens blared in the distance, and a strange hum seemed to vibrate through the ground. She barely had time to register what was happening when she collided with someone. Her body jerked back, her hands shooting out to steady herself. But before she could regain her balance, strong hands gripped her shoulders, preventing her from falling. "Easy there," a deep voice rumbled. Lena looked up, startled, into the eyes of a man whose presence seemed to command the air around him. He was tall, with dark hair and piercing blue eyes that seemed to look straight through her. The soldier's uniform fit him well, and there was a quiet intensity about him that made her heart skip a beat. "I'm so sorry," Lena stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. He nodded once, his gaze lingering for a moment longer than necessary. "It's okay. No harm done." She straightened up, trying to recover from the unexpected encounter. For a brief moment, their eyes locked and something strange passed between them, an undeniable spark. It wasn't just the physical contact or the awkwardness of the situation. There was something more. Something electric. Lena found herself lost in his gaze, her mind momentarily blanking out. She felt a warmth spreading through her chest, an unfamiliar flutter in her stomach. She quickly pulled herself together, her scientist's mind working to analyze what had just happened. "Are you all right?" the soldier asked, his voice warm but firm, snapping her out of her trance. She nodded quickly, too embarrassed to speak for a second. I'm fine, really." There was a long pause, and Lena could feel the weight of the moment between them. She didn't want to leave, but the chaotic scene around them made her nervous. She glanced behind him at the throngs of people running in every direction. "You should be careful. It's dangerous out here," she said, her voice steady despite the way her heart was racing. He looked back, eyes narrowing. "I know. I've got it under control." Lena couldn't help but feel the raw strength in his voice, the confidence that seemed to radiate off him. There was something about him that put her at ease and at the same time stirred something deeper inside her. For a moment, they stood there, surrounded by chaos, neither of them willing to break the connection that had formed in such an unexpected moment. It was like the world had paused, giving them this instant to share in something unspoken. The flicker of something more. Finally, she cleared her throat and took a step back. "I should go," she said, her words sounding strange in the midst of the silence that seemed to fall between them. He nodded, a small smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "Stay safe." "You too," she responded before turning and walking away, her pace faster than before. But even as she walked, she couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter wasn't just random. It was as if their paths were always meant to cross in that moment. Lena's mind raced as she tried to focus on what she had to do. But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't stop thinking about the soldier, the way his hands had felt when they gripped her shoulders, the way his eyes had looked at her, so intense and full of purpose. Her heart thudded in her chest, and she shook her head, trying to clear the confusion that had crept in. This was ridiculous. She was a scientist, not someone who would let a fleeting moment distract her. But no matter how much she tried to focus on the task ahead, the soldier's image kept flickering in her mind. As she reached her lab, the noise around her seemed to grow louder, the panic of the city growing more frantic. She quickly unlocked the door and stepped inside, shutting it behind her. She leaned against it for a moment, trying to steady herself. She couldn't understand why that brief encounter had affected her so much. She didn't even know his name. She ran her hands through her hair, her thoughts scattered. But despite everything going on in the world, despite the chaos, there was a part of her that couldn't stop thinking about him. She tried to focus on the work she had to do. The research, the experiments. Her mind was always at its best when she was focused. But her thoughts kept returning to the soldier. His eyes, the way he had held her, the way he had made her feel in that one moment. Lena knew that the world outside was falling apart. But right then, she couldn't shake the feeling that something even more profound was about to unfold. Her life, her mission, and now even her heart, it felt like it was all tied to that single moment. Inside, the city was still in chaos, but Lena's mind was elsewhere. That brief encounter had lit something in her that she couldn't ignore. She didn't know when or how, but somehow their paths were destined to cross again. And when they did, the world would never be the same. The thought made her heart race once more, but this time she didn't push it away. She let herself feel it. The pull. Connection. She knew deep down that this was just the beginning. Lena had spent the last few weeks trying to push away the memory of Rafe, but no matter how hard she tried, he kept appearing in her thoughts. It was like he had somehow carved himself into her mind, his image as vivid as the first moment they met. The more she thought about him, the more she realized that she couldn't just forget that connection. Something had happened between them, something that she couldn't explain, and no amount of work or distractions could erase it. She found herself wondering if he was feeling the same way. When she received the invitation to the gala, she didn't think much of it at first. The event was high profile, full of people from all walks of life, scientists, politicians, business magnates, and military personnel. It would be the perfect opportunity for Lena to make some important connections for her research. She'd been invited as a guest speaker, someone important to the scientific community, and so it was a night that she knew would demand her full attention. Yet, there was something about the gala that made her stomach flutter. She couldn't explain it, but she knew that attending was somehow going to be important. The venue was dazzling. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, casting a warm glow over the crowd below. Elegant couples danced to a soft orchestral tune, while others mingled and exchanged polite conversation over glasses of champagne. The atmosphere was refined, sophisticated, perfect for an event like this. Yet, Lena couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to change. She was standing by the buffet table, adjusting her dress when a familiar voice caught her off guard. "You clean up nicely." Lena turned, and there he was, Rafe. He looked every bit as striking as she remembered. In his tailored suit, with his dark hair slightly tousled and his piercing blue eyes, he seemed like he had just stepped out of a dream. She felt her heart race as their gazes met. "Rafe," she whispered, a smile tugging at the corners of her lips. "Lena," he said, his voice low and smooth, carrying that same warmth she'd felt before. "I didn't think I'd see you here." Lena laughed softly, still trying to process the fact that they were face to face again. "It's a small world, isn't it?" "Apparently." He stepped closer, and for a moment the noise and chatter around them seemed to fade away. It was just the two of them again. The same pull, the same electricity between them that had sparked on that fateful day, surged once more. "I've thought about you," Rafe said, his voice sincere, his gaze intense. Lena's heart skipped a beat. "I've thought about you too." The words hung in the air between them, and Lena could feel the weight of them, the truth in them. It was strange how quickly they had slipped from her mouth, but she didn't regret them. She had missed him in a way that she hadn't been able to explain. "I've been hoping we'd meet again," Rafe continued, his hand brushing against hers lightly as he spoke. Lena's breath caught at the touch, and she instinctively took a small step closer to him. "It seems like the universe had its own plan," she said, smiling. They stood there for a moment, just looking at each other, both unsure of what to say next. Chemistry between them was undeniable, and in that moment, the connection that had begun weeks ago felt even more potent. Lena had never believed in fate, but right now, she couldn't help but wonder if this was one of those rare moments when life took control and brought two people together. "Well," Rafe said, breaking the silence, "how about we get away from the crowd for a bit?" Lena agreed, and together they moved through the sea of people, the noise fading into the background as they found a quiet corner of the venue. The setting was intimate, away from the prying eyes of the other guests. They sat down at a small table near a large window, the city lights twinkling outside, casting a soft glow over them. The view was breathtaking, but it was hard for Lena to focus on anything other than Rafe sitting across from her. There was an ease to their conversation, a comfort that felt natural, like they had known each other for years instead of just a few brief moments. "So, tell me about your research," Rafe asked, leaning forward slightly, his interest genuine. Lena was taken aback for a moment. Usually, people didn't ask about her work unless they had a professional reason to do so. But Rafe seemed different. He wasn't asking because he had to, but because he genuinely wanted to know more about her life and her passion. "I study the human brain, how it adapts and grows under different circumstances," Lena explained, her voice softening as she spoke. "There's so much we still don't understand, but I'm hopeful that we'll be able to unlock new potentials of the human mind soon." Rafe nodded, his expression thoughtful. "That sounds incredible. I have to admit, I don't know much about it, but it sounds like something that could change the world." Lena smiled at his sincerity. "It's not about changing the world for me," she replied. "It's about understanding how we work. I believe that if we can unlock the full potential of the mind, we can solve so many of the world's problems." Rafe watched her with a look of admiration. "You're brilliant," he said quietly. The words struck a chord deep within her. No one had ever spoken to her like that, not with such genuine admiration. Lena felt a warmth spread through her chest. She had always been focused on her work, so to have someone truly see her for who she was, it was an unexpected and overwhelming feeling. Conversation continued effortlessly, moving from science to more personal topics. They found themselves laughing at stories from their childhood, sharing little pieces of their lives with each other. With every moment that passed, their bond grew deeper, stronger. As the evening wore on, the gala began to wind down. Lena found herself wishing time would stop so she could continue being with Rafe, enjoying the simple joy of his company. She hadn't expected to feel so comfortable, so at ease with someone she barely knew. Felt as though they had known each other forever. By the time the event came to an end, Lena knew she didn't want to say goodbye. She wasn't ready for the night to end. She wanted more moments, more time with him. "Rafe," she began hesitantly as they stood up, "this might sound crazy, but—" He raised an eyebrow, his smile teasing. "What's on your mind, Lena?" "I don't want to leave," she admitted, the words slipping out before she could think about them. "I don't want this night to be over." His eyes softened, and he took a step closer to her. "I don't want it to be over either," he said, his voice low. "So, what do you say we get out of here? Maybe find a place to just be together?" Lena's heart raced at the suggestion, and she didn't hesitate for a second. "I'd like that," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the pounding of her own heart. They left the gala together, hand in hand, ready to explore the connection between them that had only grown stronger throughout the evening. It was as if the universe had conspired to bring them together, and neither of them was willing to let go of what was just beginning. Lena and Rafe sat on the balcony of her apartment, the soft evening breeze tugging at her hair as they both stared out at the city below. The lights flickered like stars, a quiet reminder of how vast the world was beyond the small space they occupied together. The air between them felt charged, yet comfortable, as if they were simply two people who had found something rare in one another. But there was more, something deeper than just the surface-level attraction they had felt from the start. For weeks, they had been swept away by the chemistry between them, drawn together by an invisible force that seemed to tighten with each passing day. But now, sitting side by side, a subtle shift had occurred, something real and undeniable. Tonight it was time to talk. To really talk. Lena shifted slightly in her chair, stealing a glance at Rafe, who was looking out at the city, his face illuminated by the faint glow of the streetlights. There was a quiet intensity in his eyes, something that had always been there, but tonight it seemed more apparent. He seemed lost in thought, as if something heavy was weighing on his mind. Lena felt a knot of concern in her chest but decided to break the silence. Rafe, her voice was soft, barely a whisper, but it was enough to pull him from his thoughts. He turned his head toward her, his expression unreadable. Yeah. Lena hesitated for a moment, trying to find the right words. I feel like we've been caught up in this whirlwind, this crazy, beautiful thing between us, she began, her fingers nervously tracing the edge of her coffee cup. But we haven't really talked about us. About what's really going on here. Rafe's gaze softened, and he shifted to face her fully. The moment felt sacred, like a delicate thread had woven them closer together, and she could feel his quiet understanding. It wasn't just about passion or chemistry anymore, it was about something deeper. Something that had begun to take root between them. I know what you mean, he said quietly. His voice carried a weight, a heaviness, as if he too had been waiting for this moment. I've been thinking a lot about us, too. Lena leaned forward, her curiosity piqued. What have you been thinking? Rafe paused, his hands finding the arms of his chair, gripping them slightly. I don't know if I'm good at talking about these things, he admitted, his voice laced with a rare vulnerability. I've spent most of my life keeping things inside. But there's something about you, Lena. You make me feel like I can let my guard down. And for the first time, I don't want to hide anymore. Lena's heart swelled at his words. She had always known there was more to him than the mysterious soldier persona he wore. But hearing him speak so openly, so honestly, made her realize just how much he was willing to trust her. She reached out and touched his hand lightly, offering him a gentle smile. I get it, she said softly. I'm not perfect either. I've always kept my own walls up. It's easier that way, you know? But with you, I feel like I can breathe. Like I don't have to be so guarded. The silence between them was no longer awkward, but full of understanding. They were two people who had walked through life with heavy burdens, carrying their own private pains, but here now they had a chance to let it all go. To truly be themselves without fear of judgment. You don't have to hide anything from me, Lena, Rafe said, his voice low and sincere. I want to know you. All of you. The good, the bad, everything. Lena's eyes fluttered shut for a brief moment, her breath catching in her throat. There was something about Rafe's sincerity, the warmth in his voice, that made her heart ache in the most beautiful way. He wasn't just telling her what she wanted to hear. He was offering her something real. I want that too, she whispered. I've never had someone who really wanted to know me. Not like this. Rafe reached over and cupped her face gently, his thumb brushing along her cheek. I do, Lena. I want to know everything. Your dreams, your fears, your memories. I want to understand what makes you, well, you. Lena swallowed the lump in her throat. It wasn't just his words that touched her, it was the raw sincerity in his eyes, the quiet devotion she could see in the way he looked at her. For the first time, she felt seen. Truly seen. I've always wanted to be someone who could make a difference, she began, her voice trembling slightly. But growing up, I always felt like I had to prove myself. I didn't want to be like everyone else, you know? I wanted to be special. To be important. Rafe's eyes softened and he leaned in slightly, listening intently. You are special, Lena. More than you know. She smiled, but the sadness in her voice didn't go unnoticed. But sometimes I feel like the more I try to be something I'm not, the farther away I get from who I really am. I've spent so much of my life chasing success, but when it comes to love, I've never really known what it feels like to let someone in. Rafe took a deep breath, squeezing her hand reassuringly. Love is messy. It's complicated. But it's also the most beautiful thing in the world. You don't have to be perfect to experience it. All you have to do is be open. And trust. Lena felt a tear slip down her cheek, and before she could wipe it away, Rafe gently brushed it away with his thumb. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. His presence was enough, and in that moment, the world outside of them ceased to exist. It was just the two of them, connected in a way neither of them had ever felt before. I'm not perfect either, Rafe confessed, his voice a soft whisper. I've made mistakes. Done things I'm not proud of. But the one thing I've always known is that I would do anything for the people I care about. And right now, that's you. Lena's chest tightened and she could barely breathe, overcome by the emotions flooding through her. She had never expected this kind of honesty, this kind of depth. And yet, here it was. It was more than she had ever dreamed of. I don't know what the future holds, she said quietly, but I want to experience it with you. Whatever comes our way, I want to face it with you by my side. Rafe smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes and softened his entire face. Then we'll take it one step at a time. Together. The world around them seemed to fade away as Lena leaned in, her heart pounding in her chest. There were no more walls between them, no more doubts. Only the two of them, their souls laid bare, trusting each other with the most precious thing they had to offer, who they truly were. And in that moment, everything seemed to fall into place. The warmth between them intensified, and without thinking, they both leaned forward, their lips meeting in a kiss that was slow and tender at first. It was as if they were savoring each moment, each touch, as if they both knew just how fragile and precious this connection was. Kiss deepened, their bodies drawing closer, their hearts beating in perfect sync. Time stood still as they lost themselves in the feeling of being with each other. Everything outside of them, everything in the world, disappeared. All that mattered was the love they were building, the love that was blossoming between them, unstoppable and pure. When they finally pulled away, they stayed close, their foreheads resting against each other, sharing a breath, sharing a moment of peace. In that silence, Lena knew that they had found something rare and beautiful. A love that wasn't just about passion or attraction, but about trust, vulnerability, and understanding. I love you, she whispered, the words slipping out naturally without hesitation. Rafe's smile was the answer she needed. I love you too. Lena and Rafe spent the following days wrapped in the kind of love that felt timeless, as if they had always been together, destined to meet in this moment. Every second they shared seemed like a piece of a beautiful puzzle coming together. Time no longer felt like a rigid concept, but instead it flowed effortlessly around them. Each moment with Rafe felt like a page in a fairy tale that had started the moment they first met. They took long walks along quiet beaches, their fingers intertwined, the sounds of the waves crashing gently against the shore. There was a sense of peace that came with being by his side, something Lena had never known before. It wasn't just the beauty of the places they visited or the luxurious dinners they enjoyed, though those moments were special in their own right. It was the quiet moments, the simplicity of being together that made everything feel like it was meant to be. One evening, after a day of exploring a quaint town filled with cobblestone streets and colorful buildings, they found themselves sitting on a small balcony overlooking a valley. The sun was setting, casting a soft golden glow over the landscape. The air was cool and crisp, and they had just shared a meal at a charming little cafe. Lena leaned back against the railing, feeling Rafe's warmth beside her. There was a sense of contentment in the air, a calm that settled between them like an unspoken promise. Isn't this perfect? Lena whispered, her voice soft as she gazed at the setting sun. Everything about this feels perfect. Rafe looked at her, his eyes filled with a deep affection that made her heart skip a beat. I never thought I could feel this way, he said, his voice low and sincere. But being with you, Lena, it's like everything else fades away. Time, distance, nothing matters when I'm with you. Lena smiled, her heart swelling with warmth. She had always believed in the idea of love, but it was never something she thought she would experience in this way. With Rafe, it felt different. It was more than just a connection. It was a deep, profound bond that seemed to transcend the boundaries of time and space. It's like we've always known each other, Lena said, her voice barely above a whisper. Like we've been waiting for this moment, waiting for each other. Rafe nodded slowly, his hand finding hers again, their fingers locking together naturally. I've never believed in fate, but with you, Lena, it feels like it was always meant to be. Like we were always going to find each other. The simplicity of the moment, the quiet connection they shared, felt like the universe had conspired to bring them together. Every glance, every touch felt familiar, as if their souls had known each other for a lifetime. It was a love that defied explanation, something deeper than words could describe. It wasn't just about passion, though that was undeniable. It was about something more, an emotional and spiritual connection that made them feel like they had always belonged to each other. The days blurred into nights, and Lena and Rafe found themselves traveling to more places, creating memories in the most unexpected corners of the world. They visited ancient ruins in distant lands, standing hand in hand beneath the vast expanse of the sky, marveling at the wonders of history. They strolled through hidden gardens where the scent of blooming flowers filled the air and time seemed to stretch, allowing them to exist in a perfect moment forever. Every place they went, every new experience, felt like a dream they didn't want to wake up from. But it wasn't just the external beauty of the world that made their time together magical. It was the way Rafe looked at her when they were alone, his gaze filled with adoration. It was the way he spoke to her, as though every word he said was meant just for her. He made her feel seen, truly seen, in a way no one else ever had. And it was the way her heart raced whenever he touched her, his presence lighting a spark within her that had always been dormant, waiting to be awakened. One afternoon, they found themselves sitting on a blanket beneath the shade of an ancient tree in the heart of a beautiful park. The sun was warm, and the air smelled faintly of fresh grass and wildflowers. Lena lay on her back, her hands behind her head, gazing up at the sky as Rafe watched her with a gentle smile. He didn't need to say anything, his presence was enough. They didn't always need to fill the silence with words, sometimes just being in each other's company was enough. "You know," Rafe began, his voice thoughtful, "I used to think that love was something you could find and then keep. Like a treasure you had to protect. But with you, it feels different. Feels like love isn't something we possess, but something that possesses us. It's like we're part of something bigger than ourselves." Lena turned her head toward him, her eyes softening. "I feel the same way. It's like we were always supposed to be here together. And all the things that happened before, all the people I met, they were just part of the journey that led me to you. To this." Rafe smiled and reached over, gently brushing a strand of hair from her face. "It's hard to believe it's real sometimes. That something this perfect could happen." Lena chuckled softly, her heart full. "I don't know if perfect is the word I'd use. But it feels right. It feels like home." For a moment, they just sat there, enjoying the peace and quiet, the soft sounds of nature surrounding them. In those few minutes, they didn't need to speak to understand each other. They didn't need anything more than the warmth of their connection. Later that night, as they walked through a city lit by the soft glow of streetlights, Lena couldn't help but feel like she was living in a dream. Every step they took felt like a dance, their hearts moving in sync with the rhythm of the world around them. And as they walked hand in hand, Lena couldn't imagine a life without Rafe by her side. She knew deep down that this was more than just a fleeting connection. This was something that had been written in the stars, something that would transcend time and space. As they paused in front of a small cafe, the city lights shimmering in the distance, Rafe turned to her, his expression serious yet filled with warmth. "Lena," he said softly, "I never imagined that love could feel like this. But now that I've found you, I can't imagine my life without you in it." Lena smiled, feeling the same way, though her words came out quieter. "I don't think I ever truly understood love before. But now, with you, it feels like I finally do." Rafe leaned in slowly, his lips brushing hers in a kiss that was tender yet full of longing. It wasn't a kiss of passion or heat, it was a kiss of pure emotion, the kind of kiss that said everything without uttering a word. When they pulled apart, their foreheads rested against each other, and in the silence that followed, Lena knew with absolute certainty that this was love. It was simple, pure, and undeniable. It was a love that would last forever, a love that transcended time and space. And no matter where life took them, they would always be together. Lena and Rafe's love had grown deeper with every passing day. What had started as a spark between them had now turned into an uncontainable fire, burning brightly and fiercely. They no longer just shared moments, they shared everything, each other's dreams, fears, and deepest thoughts. They had become not only lovers but the closest of friends, partners in every sense of the word. Every glance exchanged between them seemed to carry a weight, an intensity that neither could deny. Their love was no longer something fleeting or momentary. It had become a part of them, woven into their very beings, binding them together in ways neither of them had ever known before. As the days passed, the chemistry between them only grew stronger. When they touched, it was as if electricity sparked between them, running through their bodies, making them feel more alive than they had ever felt. A simple touch of his hand would send shivers down her spine, and every time their lips met, it felt like the world paused for just a moment, letting them exist in their own little bubble of bliss. They spent countless nights together, lying side by side under the stars, sharing whispered words and soft caresses. It was in those quiet, intimate moments that Lena truly realized how much Rafe meant to her. It wasn't just about passion or physical attraction. It was about the way he made her feel, like she was the most important person in the world. The way his touch reassured her, the way his voice soothed her soul, the way his presence made everything feel right. One evening, as they walked through the streets of a sleepy town, their fingers intertwined, Lena couldn't help but smile as she looked at Rafe. The way the moonlight illuminated his face made him seem even more perfect in her eyes. He had become her everything, her safe place, her home. "Do you ever feel like we're in a dream?" Lena asked softly, her voice barely more than a whisper. Rafe turned to her, his eyes searching hers as though trying to read her thoughts. "Sometimes," he replied with a soft smile. "But I think dreams are supposed to end. This feels like something real. Like something that's meant to last." Lena felt her heart swell at his words. She had never believed in fairy tales or love at first sight, but with Rafe, everything felt like it was falling into place. He was the missing piece of her life that she never knew she needed. And now that she had found him, she couldn't imagine a future without him by her side. The nights they spent together had become sacred. They would often find themselves in quiet places, hidden gardens, secluded beaches, or even their own private balcony, just to escape the world and be alone with each other. There, under the stars, with the world around them quiet and still, they could truly be themselves. There were no expectations, no pressures, just the two of them lost in each other's company. One night, they found themselves on a small boat, drifting lazily along a calm river. The moon was high above them, casting a soft glow on the water, which shimmered like silver. Rafe rowed the boat with steady movements, while Lena sat beside him, leaning against his shoulder. The air was cool and crisp, the only sounds the gentle lapping of the water against the boat and the occasional rustle of leaves in the trees along the banks. Lena looked up at the sky, watching as the stars twinkled in the vast expanse above them. She had always been amazed by the beauty of the night sky, but tonight it felt even more magical. With Rafe beside her, everything seemed perfect. "I used to look at the stars and wonder if there was someone out there for me," Lena said quietly, her voice thoughtful. "I used to think that maybe there was someone in the world who would understand me, someone who would make me feel complete." Rafe looked at her then, his gaze intense and full of affection. "And did you ever find that person?" Lena turned her head to meet his eyes. She could see the sincerity in his expression, the depth of his feelings for her. She smiled softly, her heart fluttering in her chest. "I think I did," she whispered. Rafe reached out, his hand brushing gently against her cheek, his touch sending a wave of warmth through her. His fingers lingered there for a moment before he cupped her face, bringing her closer to him. Their lips met in a kiss that was slow and tender, a kiss that spoke of everything they had come to feel for each other. It wasn't urgent or desperate. It was full of love, of longing, of connection. When they pulled away, their foreheads resting together, Lena closed her eyes and let out a sigh of contentment. She had never known love like this before, and she couldn't imagine ever wanting anything else. Every touch, every kiss, every smile, everything between them was full of meaning, of emotion. It wasn't just about physical attraction anymore. It was about sharing a life, a future, and building something lasting and beautiful together. The days and nights that followed were a blur of shared moments and deepening connection. They traveled together to new places, explored new cities, and experienced new adventures. But no matter where they went or what they did, it was always the moments they shared in private that meant the most. Whether it was a quiet evening at home or a spontaneous kiss in the middle of a busy street, those were the moments that made Lena's heart race. They spent their days laughing, talking, and discovering more about each other. The love they shared was deep, profound, and endlessly comforting. With Rafe by her side, Lena felt like she could conquer the world. But it wasn't just about the good times. They had faced challenges together, and each time they did, their bond grew stronger. The way Rafe supported her, always there when she needed him, made her feel like nothing could ever break them apart. And in return, Lena offered him her unwavering loyalty and affection. Every time Rafe touched her, kissed her, or even just held her hand, she felt like her heart belonged to him completely. There was no hesitation, no uncertainty, just the undeniable certainty that they were meant to be together. One night, as they sat by a campfire on a secluded beach, the sound of the waves crashing against the shore, Lena turned to Rafe, her heart full. "You know," she said, her voice soft but filled with emotion, "I never thought I'd find a love like this. But now that I have, I can't imagine my life without you in it." Rafe smiled at her, his eyes warm and full of love. "I feel the same way, Lena. I never imagined that love could feel this right. But now that I have you, I know I found everything I've ever wanted." And in that moment, Lena knew without a doubt that their love was unstoppable. It was the kind of love that defied all odds, the kind that only comes around once in a lifetime. It was the kind of love that would last forever. And as they sat there, hand in hand, watching the stars above them, Lena couldn't help but feel that everything had led to this. This was where she was meant to be. With Rafe. Always. Lena and Rafe's bond had deepened in ways neither of them had ever imagined. What had begun as a chance encounter had now turned into something more powerful, more significant. Their love wasn't just a feeling. It was a force that connected them in a way that felt natural, as if they had always been meant to be together. Each day they spent together only strengthened that connection, building something unbreakable. The mornings began to feel like new beginnings, full of promise. When Lena woke up next to Rafe, her heart always swelled with happiness. It was as though no matter what had happened the day before, each new day held endless possibilities. She would often wake up first, watching Rafe as he slept, his face soft with peaceful dreams. The way his chest rose and fell with each breath gave her a sense of calm, as if everything in the world was right, just because he was there beside her. She loved those quiet mornings. The world outside may have been noisy and chaotic, but inside their little bubble, everything was still. Rafe would eventually stir, his eyes slowly opening to meet hers. The smile that spread across his face when he saw her never failed to make her heart race. He would pull her close, wrapping her in his arms, and they would spend a few precious moments together, savoring the stillness before the world began moving again. "You're beautiful," Rafe would whisper, his voice still husky from sleep. Lena would smile, her fingers brushing gently over his cheek. "You're perfect," she would reply, and she meant it. It wasn't just about the physical attraction anymore. It was the way he made her feel seen, understood, and loved in every sense of the word. The way he supported her dreams, listened to her worries, and made her laugh when she needed it most. And in return, Lena gave him everything she had, her love, her loyalty, her heart. She had come to realize that no matter what happened in the future, they were truly unstoppable as a pair. There was a quiet strength in their love. Even in the most difficult of moments, they knew they would face it together. It was as though their hearts beat in perfect synchrony. They didn't need to say anything to know what the other was thinking. It was as if their souls had already found each other in another lifetime, and now in this life they were simply meant to be. Even when they disagreed or had moments of doubt, they never let it drive a wedge between them. They learned how to navigate their differences with patience and understanding. They grew accustomed to each other's little quirks, the way Lena could never keep her thoughts to herself, or how Rafe would often disappear into his head, lost in his thoughts. They both knew their flaws, and yet it was those very flaws that made their connection all the more perfect. They accepted each other, wholeheartedly, without reservation. As the days went on, they began to talk more seriously about their future. Conversations that had once felt distant or far off were now tangible. They no longer spoke in vague terms about someday or maybe. Their dreams had become concrete, filled with plans and possibilities. They imagined a life together where they would never have to be apart. They talked about buying a house, traveling the world, and creating a life filled with love and laughter. "I can't imagine waking up without you," Rafe said one night as they lay in bed, the moonlight streaming through the window. His voice was soft, yet there was a deep certainty in it that made Lena's heart flutter. "I can't imagine it either," Lena responded, her fingers tracing the lines of his hand. "You're a part of me now. You always will be." It wasn't a question or a promise. It was simply the truth. Rafe had become her home and she had become his. They were no longer two separate people but a single entity, bound together by something stronger than just love. Their bond was unbreakable, built on trust, respect, and a shared understanding of what they meant to each other. Every night, before they fell asleep, they whispered promises to each other. Little promises that meant the world. "I'll always be here for you," Rafe would say, and Lena would respond, "And I'll never leave you." It was a simple exchange, but it held so much weight. It was their way of reaffirming the connection they shared and making sure that, no matter what, they were in this together. They spent every moment they could together, relishing each other's company. Whether they were walking through the park, curled up on the couch watching a movie, or having a quiet dinner at home, it didn't matter. What mattered was that they were together. They found joy in the little things, the way Rafe would always bring her flowers just because, the way Lena would laugh at his jokes even though she had heard them 100 times before. It was these small, seemingly insignificant moments that filled their lives with meaning. They had learned that love wasn't just about the grand gestures, the sweeping declarations, or the passionate kisses. It was about the everyday moments, the quiet companionship, and the understanding that came from simply being with someone who made you feel at home. With Rafe, Lena felt seen. She felt heard. And she felt loved in the purest, most complete sense of the word. It wasn't just a love built on physical attraction or the thrill of romance. It was a love that had endured the tests of time and distance, a love that had become a cornerstone of their lives. Every day, they added to the foundation they had built together, brick by brick, knowing that as long as they had each other, they could face anything that came their way. There was a security in their love that Lena had never known before. She didn't fear the future anymore. Whatever came their way, she knew they would face it together as a team. She trusted Rafe with everything she had, her heart, her dreams, and her hopes for the future. And she knew deep down that he trusted her just as much. One evening, after a long day of exploring a new city, they found themselves on a rooftop, overlooking the lights below. They sat together in comfortable silence, wrapped in each other's arms. The world around them felt far away, as if it didn't matter at all. All that mattered was this moment, this connection. "Do you ever think about what comes next?" Lena asked softly, her voice barely above a whisper. Rafe squeezed her hand, pulling her closer. "I think about it all the time," he replied, his voice steady and warm. "But no matter what happens, I know I'll always be with you." Lena smiled, leaning her head on his shoulder. For the first time in her life, she felt like everything was falling into place. No matter what challenges they might face, they would face them together. Nothing could break their bond. As the stars twinkled above them, Lena knew that this love, the love she shared with Rafe, was something truly special. It was a love that would last forever. It was unbreakable. Lena and Rafe stood at the edge of a new beginning, their hearts fully intertwined, their love radiating like an unstoppable force. Everything they had been through, every moment shared, every whisper of a promise had led them to this moment. This was not just the end of a story, it was the beginning of forever. They had traveled far to get here, but each step had brought them closer. In the days, weeks, and months they had spent together, they had discovered that love wasn't just about passion, it was about trust, respect, and an unshakable belief in each other. They had grown not only as individuals but as partners, learning from each other, challenging each other, and lifting each other up when life got difficult. And now, standing together in the quiet stillness of the night, the world seemed to disappear around them. The only thing that mattered was the steady rhythm of their hearts, beating in unison, echoing the promise they had made long ago, to be there for each other no matter what. Lena reached out and took Rafe's hand, feeling the warmth of his touch. Her fingers traced the lines of his palm, memorizing the feel of him, as if she could never forget it. She looked up at him, her heart swelling with love and gratitude. Rafe, too, was looking at her with eyes full of emotion, his gaze intense yet soft, as if he could see straight into her soul. "You know, I used to think love was just a fleeting feeling," Lena said, her voice quiet but filled with conviction. "But with you, I've learned that love is a choice. It's not just a moment. It's a decision we make every day to keep choosing each other, to keep holding on." Rafe smiled softly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "And I choose you, Lena. Every single day. Forever." The words hung in the air between them, but they didn't need to be said again. They both knew the depth of the promise they had made. Their love wasn't just about the joy they felt when they were together, it was about the strength that came from facing the world as a team, ready to tackle whatever came their way. They had spent so much time building something that was unbreakable, a love that was forged in passion but made stronger through patience, understanding, and unwavering support. They had seen each other at their best and their worst, and yet they loved each other all the same. They didn't need to be perfect, they just needed to be together. Lena leaned into Rafe, resting her head on his chest. She could hear the steady beat of his heart, matching her own. There was something so comforting in the rhythm of it. It was a sound that told her without a doubt that they were meant to be. As they stood there, the world around them continued to move, but for Lena and Rafe, time seemed to stand still. The future stretched out before them, endless and full of possibilities. The journey they had been on together had shaped them, but it was the path ahead that excited them most. They were ready to take on whatever life had in store for them, knowing that as long as they had each other, nothing could break their bond. Hand in hand, they walked forward, the stars shining brightly above them, the promise of forever guiding them. Their love was more than just a feeling, it was a force that had the power to change everything. It had already changed them. And together, they knew they could face any challenge, share in every joy, and grow together through every season of life. With each step, they built their future, a future filled with love, trust, and the certainty that they would never let go. They were ready to embrace whatever came next, knowing that their hearts would forever collide in a love that was destined to last for all eternity. The end of their journey was not an end at all. It was a new beginning, a new chapter that would be written in the story of their love, a love that was forever and always,